This is my windshield survey of Petersburg, Virginia. I chose to do another video just because it was easiest for me, but given that the majority of this PowerPoint is pictures, it might be easier to pause when you find appropriate so that you can view the pictures at your own pace, and I will put a little notation at the bottom of each slide that might be best to pause on. So I wanted to start out with a basic map of the route that I took. So my field placement is at Central State Hospital, marked here in the bottom left with a star. So I take 95 from Richmond. So thankfully it's a pretty straight shot off of 95. But as you can see here, this is the route that I take. And so this was part of the route that was part of my observations, as well as the green route that kind of detours to District 19 Community Services Board, and then the orange line is a railroad track. So I wanted to jump into some statistics about the city of Petersburg. So the population estimates is 31,000 people. By race, 76.7% of individuals living in Petersburg are Black, and that's compared to 19.9% of this for the state of Virginia. So it is obvious that the amount of individuals who are Black that live within Petersburg is much higher than that of the number of overall within the state. And so that's just something that I thought was particularly interesting when considering the dynamic and the setup of the community. And then I also thought it was important to note the amount of individuals in poverty, and that's 24.1% compared to 9.9% for the state of Virginia. So the poverty rate for Petersburg is double that of the states, which is kind of a lot, and that's like almost a quarter of the people in Petersburg. And then I thought the other ones were just kind of interesting too, like the 69% of households have broadband internet, and I just think of like students, and I wonder how many kids live in Petersburg without internet, because that's like 31%, and that's a pretty significant amount of people who don't have internet. These next 3 slides are just some of the pictures of things that you kind of immediately see when you exit into Petersburg. So it's a variety of businesses, gas stations, and then some of these other older buildings. It's not quite clear what the purpose is, but I think they all add character to Petersburg. One thing that I really wanted to touch on in my the creative portion of the presentation was the schools and what those look like. So this is Appomattox Regional Governor's School, and you pass this actually with both of the streets, the blue and the red. You pass it. You pass on one side, the left 2 pictures, and then the back of the school is the far right picture. And so this is kind of like the arts governor's school. So they have focus areas of dance, literacy, arts, music, technology, theater arts, and visual arts. And some of the requirements to get into the school are an essay. A B or above average for 7th grade is actually required. 2 recommendations, one from a core teacher, and then obviously transcripts. And each of those have their own particular criteria as well. So one thing that I thought was interesting when doing some more statistics research about the schools was the race makeup of the schools. And one thing about Appomattox Regional Governor's School is that more than the Petersburg School District feeds into it. So these students are from kind of a much broader range, but I think it's just interesting to notice the differences in the race breakdown when you look at it. And even though the governor's school is not completely comprised of Petersburg students, I just think it's fascinating that they're so different, and the Petersburg statistics are also very different from the overall Virginia school reports. So this slide has the main facilities or factories of Petersburg. There's a Pepsi facility, a fairly new Dominion plant that is directly across I would say, the main entrance for Central State. And then this is also the market that is in Petersburg. One of the most predominant public spaces that I found within Petersburg during my observation was churches, and so this slide is sort of dedicated all to the churches and those that I saw. This is just a picture of the Petersburg Bureau of Police and a local fire station. This slide has some of the other businesses. As you'll see, some of them are automotive related, from a Napa center to a tinting and audio place. There's also a driving school, a beauty town. I'm guessing that's kind of like a beauty supply store. Two other facilities, and I wasn't quite sure what the purpose of them was. There's a daycare center and then a office furniture outlet as well. These are some of the restaurants that I passed during my observation. These are the things around town that I found to be a little bit more interesting. There's a bit of random billboards throughout the city, and I just thought they kind of were out of place. There's an abandoned hotel that's directly next to the 95 corridor, and then these are two pieces of street art that I also saw during my observation. Lastly, I wanted to round it out with the agencies that I chose. So the picture on the left is a picture of the Central State sign. Due to kind of confidentiality, I could not get any pictures closer of the actual buildings, but the three pictures on the right are District 19's Community Service Board in Petersburg.